Welcome fathers who are looking to inspire their kids and become fearless. This is the Become a Fearless Father show and I'm your host, Klaas van Oosterhout. I'm a father of 2 boys, husband and entrepreneur. This show is created to teach you how to take control and enjoy the most difficult job you've ever faced, fatherhood. I'm going to keep it real and share real life experience. A heads up, there is no magic pill. You will have to put in the hours, sweat and tears to achieve victory. Are you ready to improve your health, wealth, relationships, knowledge and become the hero your family needs you to be? I know you are. So get your pen and paper ready and let's become fearless fathers together.
Here we go. So welcome everybody. It's evening here. I think it's morning over there, right, Juan?
It's noontime, yeah, just a little bit afternoon, yep.
Excellent. So I am live today with Juan Campos, and we're going to talk about what I've written down. First of all, of course, we're going to talk about your background story. I want to hear all about you. And usually, or at least so far, every time it happened that my whole list of what I've written down, what I want to talk to you about, or what I want to talk to about the person that I interview, goes absolutely sideways, over, under, and nothing that I actually written down. So I'm assuming that's going to happen again, but if not, I would love to discuss with you and talk more about what does it mean for you to be a dadpreneur. So the fathers out there that are still working a 9-to-5 can actually learn more about what that means, and if that's their dream, understand from you the struggles, the benefits, etc. So we'll definitely talk about that. And what for sure we're going to talk about is planning. So what if you plan for 2019? How do you plan? Don't you plan? Why not? Etc. And other than that, we probably will discuss the 3 main things and the most important things of everybody, health, wealth, and relationships. So we'll be touching that as well, if time permits. Anyway, enough chit-chat from my end. Juan, thank you so much for being online. Really enthusiastic to have you on my show. And let's start with that. Let's start with, who's Juan, what you're all about, what are you trying to achieve, etc., etc.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for inviting me. It's been a thrill to kind of join you with your Fearless Father work. It's been kind of cool. I really like your perspective on things. So it's really cool to be with you and talk to you, because I know we've been talking a little bit, through OFA and all the other stuff. But basically, my name's Juan, and what I'm trying to do is I have a program called Seal with the Smile. Seal with the Smile basically encompasses a wide range of things. But at the end of the day, what it's really about is helping people unravel their potential. Because I really feel strongly in my heart as a teacher and as a father, everybody has potential. But the thing is, do we have the skills, do we have the framework to allow that potential to come out? And as a teacher, I teach high school science. And as a teacher, I see that every single day with my kids. I see kids that are struggling, that are not reaching their potential. And I also see the teachers, the adults in the rooms that are not doing that as well. They're also not achieving their potential because they're also feeling the limits of their mindset and whatnot. So the program that I created is specifically for teachers, because and as a father, the better you are, the better your kids will be. And that's the whole premise behind Seal with the Smile. The better the teachers are, the better their students will be. So it's really a 6-week course about helping teachers become the best version of themselves they can be, through self-awareness techniques, through a lot of coaching and modeling. And throughout the course, they will discover and they will turn into what I call the queen bee, because part of my background is also beekeeping. I've been a beekeeper for 12 years and I love it. I've taught beekeeping. I actually work for USDA as a honeybee researcher. So I've done a lot of things with beekeeping. My background is in chemistry. So I know the chemical parts of it. I know the real world parts of beekeeping, actually being in a hive. And I use all that technique in my classroom. So believe it or not, kids are very similar in the way they behave as the way bees behave. They work as groups. They affect each other. They see what the other one does, and they model that behavior. So I applied all of that in the program. And that's really what I'm about. I'm all about helping everybody become the best version of themselves. But I know for a fact in my heart that if I can help teachers become the best versions of themselves, they can model that for their students. And those students will see that teacher just like a father, right? I mean, when you're 100%, your kids will see that and they will live off of it. They will thrive off of it when they see you performing at your peak. So that's all I'm trying to do. Help everybody in the classroom, especially the teachers, become the best versions of themselves they can be. Because here's the thing, if we can do that, if we can model that, that gives kids hope. And kids need hope. Teachers need hope. Adults need hope. We all need to help each other achieve that. So that's the premise of behind what I'm trying to do.
I love it, Juan. Absolutely. And actually, before we get into anything else, I just want to share with you. It's funny that you say this because, well, not that, sorry, that sounded wrong. It's not funny what you say. It's just, let me explain. I was reading a book just about 2 hours ago, nicely here in the south of Spain in the sun at the pool of my parents' house. And it's called Shine, right? And it's written by Andrew Cope and a co-writer. And the co-writer was saying when he turned 18, he started teaching in front of a class. So he actually had his first day as a teacher, went into the school, and he received an advice from the head teacher. And the advice was, don't smile until Christmas, right? And then he keeps writing, and he writes about how he went into the teacher's lounge and everybody was just grumpy. And you just mentioning now, like, you know, I want to help the teachers shine because, you know, they then have a big impact on the students. It's really clicked real quick with what he was writing in the book. So I was just wondering, from your experience, is that somewhat your experience as well? And has that sparked your vision and the impact you want to make? Or how did that spark come?
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%. I mean, let's put it this way. I'm a very happy, positive, I'm very upbeat, I'm very outgoing, but this is the face that I make. like that's my face. Like 90% of the time, that's my face. And it's actually something that was reflected in my kids, because my kids would ask my wife, you know, why is he so grumpy? Why is he this? And the thing is, I'm not grumpy. It's just, sometimes I get in my head too much and I think about things, and that's just my face, and that's just the face that I make. So part of this process has actually been me rediscovering the fact that, hey, I have to be aligned with myself. My thoughts and my language have to translate it to action. And a lot of times we don't do that. And a lot of time, you know, when, especially teachers, like you said, they're grumpy, they're mad, they don't get paid enough, they have frustrations at home, they have all these problems. And then you walk into the classroom and you have that scowl and that angry look on your face, but you expect the kids to be happy, and you expect the kids to be compliant, and you expect the kids to be upbeat, and you have all these expectations of these growing humans, but you don't have those expectations of yourselves. And that just doesn't make any sense to me. So in order for my students, in order for my kids, in order for anybody around me to be better, I have to be better. I have to challenge myself, and I have to push myself forward. And that's exactly what you said is true, because when I went into teaching, you know, 5 years ago, a lot of people told me, you know, don't smile till December. You know, they gotta learn discipline, and you gotta teach them what to do, and you gotta do this, and you gotta do this. But the problem is, that's not me. Like, that's not who I am. And I'll never forget one of the first teachers that I met. He'd been in the profession. He was a physics teacher, been in it for 20 years. And he told me, he goes, man, you got to be yourself. Because you absolutely have to be yourself. Because if you're not yourself, they will smell that and they will take advantage of it. And man, they will run you into the ground. So my first year teaching is always challenging. But at some point, I did turn around and it's like, look, I'm not this like barbarian tyrant, like, oh, you know, I'm not that person. And it was so funny because there were so many. I had one, especially my first year, this one girl in particular, she told me, she's like, mister, you need to yell at us more. and I was like, what? She's like, yeah, you don't yell at us enough. And I was like, what are you talking about? And she's like, yeah, other teachers yell at us and scream at us, and you don't do that. So you need to do that. And I was like, but why do you want me to yell at you? Like, she's like, well, because I feel like some of these kids don't listen to you enough. And I was like, well, maybe they don't, but that's not who I am. and I can't be somebody that I'm not, you know? And man, I promise you, from that day forward, the entire classroom changed
Nice.
because they saw me and they saw me being real and they saw me not being afraid of being who I am and not having to like this fear of having to dominate everybody and letting that fear take over. I was just happy within myself. And as soon as that happened, man, everybody just calmed down. The entire room just changed. So I totally get where that perspective comes from. And I think maybe 50 years ago, even 30 years ago, that perspective had some sort of merit. But now, going into the future, it's not that way anymore. It's just not that way. There's a different mindset involved, and we have to approach. We just know more about human psychology and human nature. Like we can't go back to those times anymore.
No, exactly. Yeah, and what I hear from this whole story is authenticity.
Yeah.
Is important, and I guess it's important for everybody, right? Because you fill a dual position as a teacher, so as a kind of 9 to 5 job, but also at the same time as a entrepreneur. But I'm assuming that you agree that authenticity is important for, well, shoot, everything. As a husband, a father, a teacher, an entrepreneur, a friend.
Everything. Oh
Right?
yeah.
Great. I really appreciate you
Every,
sharing that because I with Facebook, social media, and everything, I kind of have the feeling like we're going further away from the whole authenticity, right? We want to show more of only the beautiful things, and that's it. Look at the nice car I have. Look at the wonderful clothes that I'm wearing, and you only have one set of nice sweater or t-shirt. So
yep.
I love that. So in that regards, right? Because also when we look at other fathers, we're like, oh man, they look so happy and lucky, and always the nice pictures and stuff like that. I want to skip a little bit since we talked about children and et cetera like that. How are you as a father, and what are some of the most important things at this point? And I can't remember. Do you have one or more?
I actually have three. I have three.
Excellent.
Yeah, I have three. So I have my oldest. He's 8. He just turned 18. My 7-year-old daughter, and then my 4-year-old son.
Wow. So there's a big difference between the first one and the second and the third also. Wow.
Oh yeah. So
you went through everything already. Awesome.
Well, that's not totally.
Okay.
there's always more.
No, of course. But the question that I have for you is, what are some of the key lessons that you are trying to teach, or how do you say that? That your kids pick up on that will help them through life?
Well, I'll tell you what. I think one of the biggest ones is staying calm in very difficult situations, because I've noticed this, especially now that I've had like I said, we've kind of run through everything once, and now I'm going through the running a second time or a third time with the little ones. But I really feel that staying calm and staying focused and staying present is really, really important, because like for example, my kids, my kids like to play in the dark. They love to play in the dark. And we'll go outside and we'll play in the dark, and and they've gotten to a point where they turn off the lights. But the thing is, I've noticed that the reason, or possibly one of the influences that allowed them to be comfortable in the dark, is because I wasn't afraid to play in the dark. When we went outside and we were running our flashlights, they didn't see me freak out, so they weren't going to freak out. For New Year's, we had fireworks. They were looking at me like, is this safe? And I was like, no, it's fine. So I gave them some sparklers, and I told them, okay, just stick it out, stick your hand out. And whenever whenever it got too close, I just told them, calm down, and they would do their sparklers, and they had a good time. They were nervous at first, but then they were having a good time afterwards. Whenever they fall, whenever they hurt themselves, if I'm like, oh, what happened? If I freak out, they're going to freak out. So I think one of the best lessons you can teach your kids is to just stay calm and be present in the moment. especially like with my little kids, whenever they cut themselves, when they're bleeding, they're like, oh, there's blood. And, as a scientist, for me, as a, just for that kind of stuff, I'm always looking at it like, hey, look, that's your blood. Like, look at it. Like, it's cool. Like, it keeps you alive. Look what happens when you put pressure on it. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. We just don't want it to leave your body. We want it to stay inside.
Yeah.
So, right. So I think when you reframe those perspectives, when they're completely scared and you can teach them methods of just staying calm in those situations, I think that really, really makes an impact on them, because life is scary, especially kids going into school, and you have peer pressure and you have all these kinds of different situations that want to move your kids in left and right. For them to stay calm and to learn how to think and say, okay, what is it that I can do in this situation? I think that's super, super valuable. And it's something that I really, once I've seen how different it helps them, how it changes the way they think, it's something that I'm really pushing for me to stay calm. And that way for them to understand whenever things are rough or stressful, crying will help you alleviate that anxiety. But I need you to calm down and start to think and start to figure out, okay, what is the best decision that I can make right now? And it doesn't have to be anything like super dramatic. It could be, another example, spilling something on the table. I mean, yeah, your table's expensive, and yeah, it costs a lot of money, and yeah, maybe that does make you mad on the inside. But the thing is, that's me, right? That's my battle. That's my problem with it. But to them, they don't see it that way, because they didn't buy the table. They didn't spend the money on it. They just see something falling, and then the first thing they're going to look at is me and just look at my reaction. But if I tell them, okay, go get something to pick it up, put it on the paper, get the paper towel, clean it up, fix it, and be over with it, and let's move on with life, well, then that changes things. And then all of a sudden they can start prioritizing, say, okay, this is something I could fix, this is something I can't fix. I think those are really, really important.
I like that. So what you're saying is I'm the role model for them to learn from. Not many rules, but just them looking at me and me making sure that I got my own, how do you say that? You know what your values are, what you want to achieve in your life, and then respecting that, especially the patience one I like. And you mentioning the freaking out. Hey, sorry for the interruption. I know you're really enjoying the show. Just want to make sure, if you're liking this information, please subscribe and press the like button. And also, go visit becomeafearlessfather.com. You get the opportunity to share your biggest challenge at the moment as a father, and it gives me the opportunity to try and help you overcome this. Thanks, and enjoy the rest of the show. Here's an example, and I want to see what your view is on this. And I just recently uncovered this on my own. I always thought that I was afraid of heights. And the reason for that was that every time I was with my mother's really scared of heights, which, it happens. It's okay.
Right.
She was projecting. I now noticed that she was projecting her fear upon me. So I was also thinking like, "Oh, I'm afraid of heights." Like I've always had that. And we just went recently into the mountains, and I was standing on the ledge, and I had no problem because I thought of that process because of a different situation. Is that something also that you mean as in regards to, do we have that kind of big influence on our kids that they always look at us to?
110%, man. You nailed it on the head. I mean, two stories with that. There was a story that my mom and my dad told me about. Because I was born in Mexico, and there, the apartments are like skinny, but they're really, really long, right? They're tall, and there's a staircase, apparently, that just kind of was like a winding staircase that went all the way up to the very, very top. Somehow or another, my mom lost track of me. And then when she finally found me, I was climbing up those stairs, and I was probably about, a year and a half, 2 years old. And I was like right on the edge of the staircase. And she was about to freak out. She was going to scream. And my dad grabbed her and he said, "Stop it." He said, "Don't scream," because he's not scared. But the second you start to yell and you start to get scared, he's going to get scared, and he's going to lose confidence, and he's going to fall. So my mom had to like hold her mouth, and they were just kind of like staring at me. And the story is, they were like, "Okay, mijito, calm down, it's all good." And so I just was up there on the ledge, and then I walked my way back down, and then that was it. It was over.
Mm-hmm.
So, oh yeah, absolutely. And I can tell you this from working with high school kids, 17, 18 years old, especially as someone that teaches science, my attitude towards what I'm teaching completely changes and influences the way they feel about it. Because a lot of kids feel that they can't do science or they can't do math. But if my attitude and my perspective is, oh, you can do this, it's all good, no big deal, it completely changes their mindset. It completely just changes what they're capable of doing, because I'm giving them the space for them to say, okay, yes, I can do this, where before that space was filled with fear. And so much of what we do as parents, and so much as what I do as a teacher and as an educator, is just set the precedent for the mindset that is supposed to be the most effective in this particular case. Whether it's, teaching something that's really difficult, or whether it's, like you said, modeling for your kids. Absolutely, your mother influenced the way you looked at heights, 110%, because you learn from them. Part of what I'm teaching in the course is something that they discovered at Harvard University, which is feedback mechanisms. So when I'm just thinking about it, you have children, how they were when they were little. They would cry, and what would you do? Give them the bottle, right? Crying meant the bottle. Crying meant the bottle. So guess what? When they got hungry, they would cry, because they knew within a few minutes they were going to get a bottle. And that's how that works. And that's how human beings work. I mean, just take any social situation that you're in. You walk into a strange room, a bunch of strangers, and you see everybody laughing. Well, what are you going to do? You're going to start laughing, right? And it's only because you're picking up cues from the environment, and you're saying, oh, okay, this is what I'm going to do. Well, who are your biggest influencers? Your mother, your father, whoever's raising you, who's ever, providing you food and warmth and security and all that stuff. So yeah, absolutely. If your mother's afraid of heights, you're picking up on that. You're thinking, oh, I need to be afraid of heights because she's afraid of heights. So yeah, 100%.
And there, of course, comes in the difficult thing for a father is that, well, and maybe this is too generalized, but I always think that as men, as fathers, we're more like, okay, yeah, let them play and do stuff, especially when they're boys, and maybe we're more protective when they're girls. I don't have girls, I don't know, but my two boys, I let them do a lot of stuff, and that was also something that, they were walking on the ledge, and I let them walk on the ledge because, they have to discover their own, their own, what they can do, and they feel comfortable with playing, so it's okay. Of course, my mom was there like, no, don't. So I said, look, let them discover it. But that's where the difficulty lies, no? That when is something too dangerous and we have to protect them in regards to when is something for them a good experience to continue and discover their own limits. What's your view on that, and how do you deal that with in regards to your kids?
Well, that's interesting, because I think as men, and this is, you can relate this back to biology. We are automatically by default the risk takers. Like that's what we do. We take risk every single day, and that's just what we do. So we are by default gonna see something not as risky as, say, somebody else or your wife or whoever, right? I mean, just right off the bat, that's just already how we're just wired that way. So I think the line is basically depending on what you can handle. Because for me, and I mean, obviously for you, if you see them walking on the ledge, you are already calculating, oh, I can catch him. If he falls there, he's not gonna hurt himself real bad. Like, you're already doing those kind of calculations in your head. You're already kind of gauging the risk because you've done that. You've climbed those ledges, or you've done this. So And I absolutely agree with you. I absolutely agree with you that you need to let them figure out their own way and figure out what works and what doesn't. Because the thing is, how else are they going to learn? There are some things that we cannot teach, by sitting in front of someone and writing it on a board or explaining to them whatever. They have to experience it. And I really feel confident in the fact that part of our job as fathers and especially as a teacher is not to teach them, but to create learning experiences where they learn how to do something like that. So in your situation, I think what you were doing was creating a learning experience for your kids. Now, obviously, they don't know that, but you're already looking at the entire situation. You're saying, okay, even if he does fall, he'll be okay, and it's fine. And you're already kind of gauging it all out. So by you just kind of standing there and observing them, and on some level holding your mom back and saying, hey, don't get in the way. You're allowing them to do that, because I fully 100% agree with you. It's about the experience. It's about them discovering within themselves what they are capable of doing. I do this with my kids all the time. In fact, quick story. My daughter, we got my mom got my son a little 4-wheeler, little Power Wheel thing. It doesn't go really fast, but it's a battery operated thing. And my son got on it and, running around. Well, my daughter got on it and she was running around with it too. Well, the next day after Christmas, she was on it too. And I'm watching her and she flipped it. So she was going down, she was going down this little hill, and then she flipped it. She rolled over and she landed on her head and she kind of fell over. And I stopped and I looked at her and I was like, she seems okay. She got up, she looked around. She wanted to make sure she wasn't in trouble. She was walking around. My wife was like kind of running out the door, and I was like, no, hold on. She seems fine. She seems okay. She got back up, and then she moved around. So if I was to go out there and I was to be like, Mika, what are you doing? If I was to have freaked out, that would have completely changed that experience for her. Instead of allowing her to kind of like get up on her own, dust herself off, and get back on and go and play. In fact, later on, she even told me, she goes, yeah, Dad, I flipped the thing. I was like, oh, did you? She's like, yeah, but I'm okay. Yeah. So it's that. It's creating those experiences that are so meaningful, because again, we can't teach them everything they need to learn. But what we can do is provide as safe as an environment as possible for them to learn these things on their own. And that's the heart of Seal with a Smile. That's the heart of being a teacher, of being a father, creating those experiences for other people. Because like I said, some people, you have to discover what you're made out of. And we have a very short amount of time as a father to do that. Fatherhood, being a father is really a 20-year journey, because there's only this much time for you to actually make that kind of impact. Once they're grown up, like my 18-year-old, that's kind of it. I mean, they'll come to you for resources, they'll come to you, for help, but man, it's a very precious time when they're this little. So the more we can create those experiences, the better they will be.
Exactly. So you haven't mentioned the word, but I'm just wondering, because you're saying we're creating a safe environment, but can you say we're creating a safe environment for them also to fail?
No, that's exactly what I mean.
Okay. So in that case, sorry, just what does it mean for you to fail? What does failure mean to you, first of all, and how do you then incorporate that as a teacher, an entrepreneur, and as a father?
Oh man, that's a big question.
Sorry.
No, but it's a great question, because here's the thing. I don't believe in failure. I just, and part of the reason I don't say that word a lot, in fact, it's one of my things that I don't want to say this year, is because I don't think there is such a thing as failure, because it's just learning. If something were to happen and you were to fall, you pick yourself up and then you say, okay, that I'm not going to do again. Or if I'm going to do it again, I'm going to learn how to not fall the second time around. So we have this idea that failure is like a conclusion, instead of it being a process. And I think that goes into being an entrepreneur. I think that goes into being a father. It definitely goes into being a teacher, mainly because, when your kids do something and they mess up, it's not that they like, oh, they're always going to spill the milk. I mean, no, you're not always going to spill the milk. You just haven't learned how to hold the cup right, or you haven't learned, where your mouth is, or whatever the situation is. And it takes time, and it takes, a certain process in order for them to discover that. Same thing for an entrepreneur. I mean, last year, my online course, was a dream. You know, it was a dream for me to have this online course. I just started beta testing the course with some teachers at my school, and look at me now, a year later. You know, I did a webinar yesterday. I'm doing this with you live. I mean, man, look how quickly, you know, things can change in a year. The online course is done. But again, it wasn't because that didn't happen because, oh, I did something and I messed up. Oh, I'm never going to do it again. It's because there was a process involved. And I really feel strongly that as an entrepreneur, as a dad, if you focus more on process instead of results, things will completely change and your perspective will completely change. You can use certain goals as markers. You know, you can say, oh, look, I finished this, boom, that's a marker. But that marker is only there to take you to the next step. You know, it's not the end result, because as an entrepreneur, I'm sure you know, we're never going to be done. like there is so much to do, so many things to learn, so many processes to understand and to implement. Even your program, you know, how to start your mornings right, you know, how to get your mentality straight. Those are all processes that we all need to learn. And guess what? We're not always going to do them at 100%. But if the goal is to at least strive to be consistent and stay within the process, then that's something that we can learn and grow from. And as a father, for sure, that's really important. That's why, to me, failure, it's a word I really try to avoid. I try to avoid it, you know, my personal life. I try to avoid it, you know, as a teacher in the classroom, especially with my kids, especially as an entrepreneur, because there's no such thing. It's just opportunities for you to learn and for you to grow from, and to say, okay, maybe this process wasn't the one that I needed to use, or the one that got me where I needed to get. So let me tweak it, let me change it, let me learn from it, and then move forward.
Exactly. I like the way to look at it. And then I must say, sorry that I'm the first one to make you say failure in the year.
No.
Already on the 2nd of January. But hey, I love your explanation. Absolutely great for all fathers, all dadpreneurs out there to really look at it that way. As an entrepreneur, sometimes it's difficult, especially in the beginning years, right? Where you struggle, you fail, or you learn. I always keep saying you either win or you learn, and that's the way I look at it. So it's kind of similar with the way you look at it. I really love it, and I keep reminding it. And then from what I understand from you as well, to all the other people out there, that's the way we live. We win or we learn. We do both. Right? So in that regards, because you just mentioned something really big, like something that I don't want to talk about this year is 2019 is that words, right? So you've been thinking about the year 2019. I'm just wondering, how focused have you been on planning or visioning your 2019? What's your approach, or what has been your approach towards that? Or maybe even ask you in conjunction with that, the standardized of what people use is New Year's resolutions, right?
Oh, what's my New Year's resolutions for 2019? Oh man, that's a tough one, because I think when you, and it's not to say that I don't like the word resolution. I mean, you can frame it however you want, but I really feel strongly that, especially as an entrepreneur, when you look at a business is basically a series of systems, right? It's a series of systems that work in conjunction to produce either a product or a goal or to get you somewhere, right? So to me, it's really important for me personally this year for me to work on my systems, because one of the biggest issues now that I'm looking back has been that I've been doing this by myself for so long. The only person that holds me accountable is me. Like I have, you know, I'm the only one that will check up on me and will make sure that I'm doing what I need to do. So if I have a system where I say, for example, you know, like this year, Tuesdays are going to be my webinar days. Thursdays, I'm going to record my podcast. I'm going to make sure to publish on Mondays. I'm going to do all my social media posts on Sunday. You know, those kinds of things. If I can have those in place, then it's no longer me checking up on myself. It's, oh, this is what I need to do, and I have this deadline to do it, and then that's it. Now, obviously, that's going to involve a certain amount of discipline to get those done, because you're always going to find an excuse as to why you couldn't do this or why you couldn't do that. So, to me, that's something that I'm definitely going to work on for 2019. I've committed to doing a webinar a week. And I put money behind that, so I'm gonna have to do it.
Nice.
So that's something that I'm gonna do.
And sorry, Juan, when you say you put money behind that, what do you mean? Like you invested money, or is it like kind of like a deaf ground saying, I have a buddy that I agree with. If I don't give the webinar, I'm going to pay him.
Oh, no, I paid for the monthly subscription to the webinar service.
I see. Okay. Yeah, it was just to clarify. So I appreciate it.
No, but that's a good question. In fact, I think, and I'm going to touch on that in a little bit, because I think so many people, especially in the entrepreneur space, we're so afraid of spending money. We're so afraid of spending money because we're thinking, oh, well, I can find a cheap way to do this, and I can find a cheap way to do that. But the thing is, and Russell Brunson says this, a bunch of different people say this: money is just an exchange for a good or a service or for time. Like, and the money is going to come back to you. It's just not going to come back to you right away. But the thing is, you have to, it's a way to hold you accountable. I can say, I'm going to have this webinar every week, but now that I'm paying for a service, monthly, well, that's going to make me want to do the webinar because I'm putting money behind it. And not only that, but now I'm like more motivated to get my money back. So I'm not just going to do the webinar. I'm going to make sure I'm going to do my webinars as effectively as possible. And that's something I've definitely learned through all the stuff that I've been trying to do this year, or actually the end of 2018, with building, my ClickFunnels and building the program. The second you start putting money in front of it, man, that completely changes your perspective on things, because now you're like, okay, now I really got to invest my time and energy. I can't be, scrolling through Facebook, or, I can't be like thinking of, watching memes or whatever. I really have to commit the time and the energy to doing this. And I think that also goes back to, the systems that I'm talking about, because again, it's such a lonely thing to be a solo entrepreneur, like especially a dad one, because it's funny because like my kids will sit on my lap and they saw me building the funnel, and they saw me working on my webinars, and they know, they kind of have an idea what I'm doing. But at the end of the day, it's you, right? It's just you, and it's just me, and it's just me trying to put all these things together. And so many people have no idea what I'm trying to do. Like none of it makes any sense. Like what are you're talking to who, and you're talking to where? It's very, very confusing. But the more disciplined you are, and the more systems you have in place, and the more you say, okay, this is who I'm trying to be. These are the systems that I have to keep me in check. Like I said, for 2019, that is definitely something that I'm trying to do, because it's that momentum that keeps you going. And then the cool thing about a system is you just add to it, right? So at some point, I had a virtual assistant that I hired the end of last year. She taught me a few things. Boom. When the next time I get a VA, I know where to put them in place. And it's just, you add and you build and you build and you build until you get to, wherever you work hard to get to.
Exactly. I like that. In regards to accountability, right? Because that's what I was going more with in regards to DevGround. That's something that I've got set up with a couple of guys. So I'm just wondering, because you mentioned like, okay, so with the systems, there's some sort of accountability with paying for certain services that I need to go and use the webinar. Do you have any other accountability set up? What's your further view or philosophy, so to say, in regards to the word accountability?
Well, I think as a father, obviously you have accountability to your kids, right? You gotta put forward to that kids. Accountability as an entrepreneur, I think definitely it comes to your audience, because when you are someone that is trying to promote a product or a service, or if you feel like you have the solution or the answer to something, you gotta promote. You gotta put content out there. You have to really put that stuff out there. And I think sometimes, especially if you're just starting up, you think, man, nobody's paying attention to me. Nobody's listening to this. Nobody cares about this. Nobody cares about that. But the fact is, they are paying attention to you. But what you're not getting is the response. But the thing is, and like for example, my podcast. My podcast. I've had this podcast for over a year now. At the beginning, no one was listening to it, and now this year I'm way past 3,000 downloads, like way past that. So the thing is, it's not about, it's not about thinking that no one's going to pay attention. Is, do you have enough things that people want to pay attention to? Have you built a body of work that people are going to pay attention to? And that goes back to your accountability, because if you don't promote and you don't put out content, you're definitely not going to attract the people that you want to serve. So I think accountability falls into those, categories. Number one, you have to promote and to put out content enough for your audience. But number two, I have a few mentors online that I talk to, that are checking up on me every once in a while. And just to say, hey, are you doing this? Are you doing that? How your Facebook ads, how are this or that and the other. If you can build a circle of people that are in your space, or that at least will kind of check up on you, I think that's huge. I think that's a big deal. I mean, certainly one of my mentors, if he hadn't pushed me along, to do the OFA challenge and to do a few other things, I mean, man, I probably wouldn't be talking to you right now. So yeah, if you can curtail a small group of people, or at least one or two people that'll just kind of say, hey, are you doing this? Are you doing that? Or what's going on with you? And keep in mind that your audience and that the people that you're trying to serve are waiting for you. They really are waiting for you. You really do have an audience waiting for you, listening to you. I think that's super important.
Exactly. No, absolutely. Great. I appreciate you explaining your view in regards to accountability. Now, with regards to planning and looking forward to 2019, now we've talked about your business. Do you do the same for your, let's say, personal life, for your kids, for your relationship with your wife, your health, and all those kind of things? Or is that something it just happens? How do you look on that?
Well, I let's put it this way. I have been practicing yoga off and on for about 6 years. This past year in 2018, I was religious. I was like, okay, every day I was doing it. It was going great. And during the summer, I started lifting weights, and I was really just kind of getting to where I needed to be. And then I started noticing physical changes. I started noticing, my health increasing, just my productivity. And then when I started really focusing in on creating my online course and building the funnel around it, man, that just goes by. And it was crazy because, I would wake up and I was like, oh, I got to do this, but, I got to read about this, this thing, or, oh, I have to, work on my epiphany bridge, or, oh, I got to read this other thing. So I completely put it to the side. And now, I've gained about 10 pounds in that whole process. Yeah, it's bad. And so now it's kind of like, okay, how am I going to make this all fit, right? How am I going to fit? So on the one hand, I can easily say, okay, I failed, right? I failed. I messed up. I let my body go, go back to the way it used to be. But on the other hand, I can say, all right, there's a lot of things that I need to be responsible for. And now that I've kind of finished the dirty work of putting all this stuff in together, and now I'm switching gears into more of a marketing, creating that attractive character phase. Now I need to restructure my time and say, okay, if I'm going to be an attractive character, I got to lose this gut, right? Like if I want to be someone that says, your thoughts, your language, and your actions have to line up, I have to be that person. So I gotta make time for that. And I do think that scheduling is important. There's some sort of saying that says, if you plan for it, it'll happen. I don't know what it is, but basically you need to plan for things. You do. Planning with your kids, planning time with your wife, planning time to make everything happen. I mean, you have to. I mean, you absolutely have to. As someone who's used to kind of flying by the seat of his pants, it's very hard for me to do that because I'm very spur of the moment kind of guy. But I do see that if I'm going to build a system, if I need to build systems to grow my business, I got to make time. I mean, you have to. So that's definitely 2019 goals. That's definitely on my things. And again, taking care of, finding time for my health, finding time for my kids, finding time for the business, for my spouse, all that kind of stuff, that all has to fit in somehow. And you just got to make it work,
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. And that's also where that comes in, where you learn with what you're doing. It's like, okay, I had to do this. However, I noticed that this suffered because of that, right?
Yeah.
For me as well. Like all of a sudden, 6 months later, you're like, I actually didn't go on a date with my wife anymore.
Yeah.
That might not be. I now understand why she's so grumpy lately. So
yeah,
it's not failure; it's just learning and then being a man and going to her and say, "Look, I think I messed up here. So let's try to restructure it." So just for you and for all the dadpreneurs just listening and thinking like, "Oh yeah, I got the same problem." That's exactly the reason why I started the Dadpreneur Morning Routine Program. So it works on that to make sure that all those things that are so important for you, like progress, learning, reading, doing your courses, working out, and yoga, meditation, all that stuff is all done in the morning before everybody wakes up. Just for that reason, that after that you feel absolutely amazing and incredible, and you can go out for the whole day, right?
Yeah.
So sorry, a little self-promotion. I never done that.
Yeah.
I thought it was a perfect moment, at least also for you to maybe check out on that. That's the way I work on it. Not everybody likes that, but for me, it absolutely was a game changer. And that's my focus for 2019 is completely focused on helping dadpreneurs, because those are the problems that we have as dadpreneurs, right? It's just like, what do we do? Where do we find all the time? And that's how I solved that for me. And I've solved that for several fathers so far that I've done beta testing with.
That's awesome.
So in regards to that, right? In regards to, because we just mentioned also our wives, what's important to you guys in regards to connecting? Because I think even as a dadpreneur, it's even more difficult, even though you're home, to connect with those that are closest to you and those that you love more, right? What's your view on that, and how do you solve this?
Well, I think sometimes, because you're doing so many things on your own and you got so many moving parts and you're just trying to do this and that and the other, I think one of the biggest issues is, number one, finding time to connect with them, but also what do you connect about, right? Because you're in your head, pretty much 24/7, because you got X, Y, and Z you want to do, and they're doing all this other stuff as well. So it's like over time, those connection points are just no longer there, because you're so focused on, I gotta get this done, I gotta get this done, and they might be focused on kids and making sure the house is clean or making sure food's on the table, and we don't find ways to connect. It's like, where do we connect, on what level? So I think obviously number one, making time, dedicating time, putting the phone away, putting all that social media stuff away, and just saying, hey, we're just going to spend, 30 minutes. We're going to spend 30 minutes and we're just going to do this. Or, once the kids are in bed, we're just going to focus on, even cleaning. I think even if it's something around the house, I think as a dad, you can never go wrong with fixing something around the house. You can never go wrong with, doing some sort of chore or that needs to be done. And you can never go wrong with just showing your loved one what you care about them by taking care of that one thing that maybe it's been bothering them for a long, long period of time. And again, depending on what your relationship is, y'all can even do that together. I think sometimes, believe it or not, folding laundry is actually a good quality time, because that's sometimes when you can talk about things and you're doing something together. It's not really about the what, it's just about, the why, understanding that if you can spend time together where it's just you two and you're completely exclusively focused on each other, I mean, those are good checkpoints. And I think for a lot of people, they need those checkpoints. They need to know that, number one, yeah, I understand that you're trying to save the world, but, can you check in with me every once in a while? Can you make sure that, hey, you can still see me and that I'm still around and I still matter? I think that's really, really important, especially, when it comes to your kids, because I know a lot of times, especially for me, the timing of when I do things isn't always in line with when my kids are around.
Mm-hmm.
So, when my kids are, home, that's obviously I'm home, and that's when I have to do X, Y, and Z things. So, me pushing some time for my kids and then pushing all my, entrepreneur stuff later on at night. That's how I manage that. And, putting the kids to bed at an early period of time so I can spend time with my wife and we can, kind of just talk about stuff. That's always a good opportunity to do as well. So just finding what works for you and what works for your spouse is just really, really important, because again, that time where it's just you guys and you're really just focused on her and she's focused on you, that is so, so important to keep a marriage strong.
Exactly. Great. I appreciate you sharing that. In regards to the kids, I'm always interested in this to know that from fathers as well. What are some of the, besides watching a movie, at least I love watching movies with my kids, and I keep watching people that enjoy doing the same. But besides watching a fun movie, what are some of the fun things that you like to do with your kids? Because the 18-year-old, I'm assuming that this goes about doing her own thing. But for the 4 and 7-year-old, you said, right? 4 and 7.
Yeah, 4 and 7. Yeah.
And they're a boy and a girl, correct?
Correct.
So they both like different things. How do you coordinate that? What are some of the things that you guys do that are fun and things to connect with each other?
Well, I'll tell you one of the things, and I learned this from my mom, because my mom did this to me all the time. When we were little kids, I mean, everything we did was like an adventure. Like everything we did. I mean, going to the store is an adventure, looking, especially with my 4-year-old, he's starting to learn his letters. So I point out, okay, well, what letter is this? And what letter is that? What color is this? And what color is that? And, for my daughter, she's into math right now. So now I tell her, okay, well, how much is this box? And so, she's starting to put things in a calculator, and then she's starting to add up numbers. Talking about, I'm really into situational awareness. So, when you walk in, where's this guy? Where's that guy standing by the door? What color was that car? Just really making every moment that you're with them, being present and counting. Because I'm not against sitting there and watching a movie with the kids. I'm by all means, I'm not there at all. But I don't have any problem with that at all. But engagement, right? What are you talking with them? Are you understanding them? Are you being creative? Let's put it this way. For New Year's Eve, I built a box fort with them. The 4-wheeler that my son's the box that my 4-wheeler son came in, I took that apart and I created a fort out of it.
Cool.
And and so my daughter, she grabbed a bunch of other pieces of cardboard, and we made this huge tunnel, and we just built this gigantic fort out of it. And man, they've been playing with that thing nonstop. They're not even playing with the 4-wheeler. They're just playing with the cardboard box. But that kind of stuff to me is just it just makes it all happen, man. I mean, anything. I mean, just I think to me, part of it is just listening to your kids, right? Understanding what their interests are. My daughter's really into science. I mean, really, really into science. And so, whenever she has a question about something science, I mean, I will stop. I'll get on my phone. We'll Google it. We'll look at videos. We'll talk about it. As a chemist, I've done a lot of things with my kids, scientific experiments and whatnot, just fun demo stuff. They don't know why, they don't know how it works, but the thing is, we're doing it together. We're freezing bubbles together, or we're playing in the tub oh yeah, we'll do all sorts of crazy stuff. So whatever your interests are, I think it's really important just to make every moment matter, make every moment count, be present with them. It's really, really hard, especially as an entrepreneur, to be present, because we're just so focused on everything we have to do, and we're so focused on execution, and we're so focused on, well, I gotta get this done and that done and the other. But it's really important, and to, as an entrepreneur, as a father, especially as a teacher, to just be in the moment. Sometimes you really do have to like unplug from that future self and just be here, especially with your kids, because your kids are 100% present. Kids are, man, they are the most present people alive. I mean, when they're hungry, they're hungry. When they're thirsty, they're thirsty. Like, there's nothing else going on except satisfying whatever that urge is at that moment. So if you can meet them in that presence, if you can be with them and say, oh, you want to go look at that rock? Let's go look at that rock. I don't care. I can't even tell you how many times, we've tried to walk into a store and we'll be outside for 10, 15 minutes because there was a bird or there was a rock or, there was something cool. There was a cool truck we were going to go look at. So just being with them and but really, really being with them and being present, I think that really creates those special moments that I think childhood is really supposed to be about.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. I noticed that the difficulty there is that we're almost all the time in such a rush as well, right? That we kind of forget the present and miss those opportunities that you just mentioned about, like, hey, there's a butterfly, hey, there's a rock. And you just want to get in the store, run with the kids, do all the shopping, and run back out. I mean, I see it so many times. It's like you see a mother dragging a kid, like, come on, let's go. So I totally understand what you're saying, and I hope people pick up on that. Now, you just mentioned yoga, right? So just what is the last thing I want to, is that something that has helped you as well, or is helping you as well with calming your mind down and being more present?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah, please elaborate a little bit for the people, because I was talking with some people in regards to meditation and yoga, and one of the reactions that I got is like, oh no, that's not for me. That's like, so I'm just wondering, you practice yoga, so I'm just wondering a little bit, can you explain a little bit of the sensations, why you do it, etc., so people can hear it from somebody else than me?
Oh yeah, no, that's fine. No, I think it's good. Well, I'll tell you what, my my grandfather did yoga. I remember when I was a kid, he had these really big yoga books, and this is early 80s Mexico City, and they had these pictures of these weird dudes in these like weird positions, and their stomachs were like sunken in, and they just were like and so I mean, I just was exposed to it as a little kid, and I always tried to like do those things when I was little, so it's always been an interest of mine. But I will say this, there is a lot of benefits to doing it, and I think part of it is because we're not connected to our bodies the way we should be. Your feet don't touch the ground because we wear shoes. We're not exposed to the outside because we wear clothes. We're not connected to an environment the way we should be. I used to run quite a bit. I've done half marathons. I've done 10Ks, and I was really into barefoot running, because when you run barefoot, man, you feel everything. Like, barefoot running is a completely different experience than when you're running in shoes. And then the mechanics behind barefoot running were really fascinating to me, because when you run barefoot, your stride is different, the way you put your feet on, and you're just more aware of your body than you would be if you were running with shoes. So I think, for me, yoga is another way for me to connect with my body, because we don't breathe right. the majority, if you have a job where you're sitting down in front of a computer, you're not standing in a way that you're allowing your air to fill in your lungs. And you would be surprised how, a 30-minute session of yoga will completely change how much air you can actually inhale inside your body. Think about how many times you're sitting in a car, you're sitting, at work or an office or whatever. It's a lot of time that we're not sitting and doing things the way we are naturally designed to do. So for me, one of the biggest benefits of yoga has been just to allow me to just kind of know what my body is feeling and kind of know how my body's reacting. And the more I'm in tune with myself, that helps me with that present stuff, that helps me be present, helps me be more aware. And that goes back to self-awareness and just kind of knowing who you are, kind of knowing how you are as a human being. It's so important. Also, I think for me, it's also been cool to just understand what I'm also capable of.
Mm-hmm.
It's super cool to watch your body transform, and it's very subtle, but little by little, you can see how you're doing. One of my goals, speaking of goals, 2019, I want to get my handstand, down this year. Like I want to be able to do a handstand this year. And I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet by any means. But, again, because of the yoga, I understand what I need to do. I understand where my body needs to be. And especially as fathers, we want to be physical with our kids. We want to play around with them. We want to do all this kind of stuff. As you get older, I turned 40 in November. So I think as you get older, man, you got to be in tune with your body. Because you really need to know what you're capable of doing, and also understand that you are capable of more than what you even realize. And that's one of the coolest things about yoga that I've learned. So I recommend it to especially to fathers. It's cool. It's just really, really cool. I know it's got a stigma to it, and I totally get that. but I will say it, if you want to combine lifting weights with yoga, stretching the muscle and then tearing it, and that's a good practice to begin.
Awesome. I love your explanation. I'm so glad I asked you the question. I actually practice yoga with my son, my youngest, sometimes guided meditation. It's really fun. I explain it to you a little bit later. Anyway, I really appreciate you being online. Learn tons from you, and I know that entrepreneurs listening absolutely learn tons as well. I always recommend everybody, and I forgot in the beginning, make sure you got your pen and paper ready, which I always do. Anyway, Juan, for the people that want to stay connected with you, have more questions, how can they connect with you? How can they get in touch with you?
Okay, so if you want, you can always check out, oh, there he is. You can always check out, you're free to check out the podcast. So you can go to sealitwithasmile.org, sealitwithasmile.org. That's where my podcast is. I'm on iTunes. I'm on Twitter. I'm on iTunes, Spotify. The podcast is on Stitcher and Google Play. You can also check me out on Facebook, Seal It With A Smile. I've got the Instagram, Seal It With A Smile. And the Twitter account, Seal With Smiles. And I'm also writing posts on Medium. So if you check out medium.com, you can see all my blog posts there as well.
Awesome. You are definitely highly available on social media, correct?
I try to be.
Nice.
I try to be, yeah.
That's the way to go. Awesome. Maybe people saw it, maybe they didn't. Sorry. That's what happens when you're the entrepreneur. Your sons can sometimes come in on you and needing you.
But that's it, man. That's the dream, though. That's the dream, that you're able to do that. No, I think it's awesome. I loved seeing your son there. That's super cool, man. That's cool, great. Man. That's super great.
I love it as well. I just saw both my parents come in as well. Like, that's why I signed up for it, Become a Fearless Father. So,
that's right.
Thank you so much for being on. I absolutely enjoyed it. I'm sure people did as well. Now they know also how they can connect with you. I wish you the best of luck with your project, with your program. I'm loving it, and what you mentioned is so important. We forget sometimes the importance of our teachers, right? We're just so happy that we can drop our kids off at the school. However, that they're there a long time, and sometimes we get lucky, like in my case with both the teachers that my kids have, we're lucky, but I also can assume sometimes we're not. So a program like yours would really help those teachers that are struggling, because it's a tough job, and we as fathers or as parents, I think sometimes we tend to forget that. So it's great to have guys like you helping teachers out to become better and to stay grounded, as you mentioned also before.
Appreciate that.
No problem, man. So great again, everybody. Have a wonderful day, evening, morning, whatever it is. And we'll see you better soon.
All right, take care.
Take care.
Are you still meeting up with your friends now that you're a father? Kids making you stress out. You got no time for yourself to work out, read, or relax. Can you still remember the time you were hanging out with your friends, feeling energetic, happy, and confident? Spending time together and talking about your life and your crazy dreams. You're feeling alone now, don't you? No one to share your challenges with, and you're just running around from one storm into the next. Well, it's time to change this now. Join me and the Brotherhood of Fearless Fathers to speak on a weekly basis with like-minded dads to crush your challenges, face your fears with determination, be held accountable, and regain control of your life. If you want to become the hero your family needs you to be, then go to becomeafearlessfather.com/brotherhood. I'm looking forward to seeing you on one of our next calls.